Joe Jonas and Jimmy Kimmel. Like, what do you think about all this stuff going on right now?
Yes. Well, and maybe, right, when it comes out. I mean, so what I'm so fascinated by, and I think we saw this happen with Ellen DeGeneres, where, it's like, I think it's not even always the weight of what they did. It's more so if it was completely opposite of what their public persona was. Like, I think that, for example, Jimmy Fallon, it just came out while we're filming about him drinking and maybe a toxic work environment, but to me, I'm like, I mean, watching the show, I kind of assumed he was like I'm like not surprised.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I think his backlash isn't going to be that bad. Where same with like Joe Jonas, I feel like, I mean, he was, this musician. Yeah, it was like, whereas I think there was one YouTuber, Ned Fulmer, and he was on this thing called the Try Guys, and it was this huge thing.
Yeah.
But the reason it was such a big...
They were really big on YouTube.
Yeah, they were really big.
A couple of them
Or were they trying?
Trying everything,
Oh my God, they try everything.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah. But the reason or even like Lizzo, her falling out was so... I mean, that we're still kind of seeing how the dust settles there.
About that.
What's going on with that? Really, what do you think about that? What do you think?
I mean,
can you even say, I don't know, I don't want to get you in trouble. I mean, you might be interviewing her next.
I don't know. I mean, again, I think it's that it's not even always the weight of what happened, or the public might never even really know what happened. Right. I think that's a huge thing. But again, it's like, if you did something that's very opposite of what your persona was, that's where there's a disconnect. And it's why sometimes like, you might see awful people thrive in the public eye, because sometimes they're like, this is who I am. Like, this is, like, I kind of think of, I mean, I hate saying awful, but I think of like Charlie Sheen. Like, he was like, this is who I am. Like, take it or leave it. And maybe it cost him a lot, but I think and obviously too, I think women get way more pushback when there's a falling out. Like, Lizzo and Ellen are going to have a harder falling out than Jimmy Fallon and Joe Jonas.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Why? Why is it that way? Why? It's so upsetting. It makes me so angry.
It's called the patriarchy.
Yeah.
And
what? Never heard of it. I'm just kidding. I want to look at my this is a great question. How do you feel about UFOs?
Oh my God.
What's your prediction about UFOs? I don't know why I wrote that down.
No, I love that. You know what's so funny? I don't even know if this is about UFOs, but like, more so just technology. There was just a thing at the Chargers game where they had these like robots at the game. It's like going viral online. And I'm just more so obsessed with like, I think us as people, we're so afraid of robots acting human-like, but like what's really throwing people for a loop is when they see humans acting robotic. So that's why you see there's this girl Pinky Doll that's blowing up on TikTok Live because she's robotic.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think humans are so obsessed with like, there's going to be a mass hysteria. Yeah. In our lifetime, because people aren't going to know if the cashier is human or robot, and like just trying to figure out what, I think that's not really UFOs.
Yeah. But
I think that's like more of a thing that we'll be dealing with.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah,
that's super fascinating. I mean, technology is all well and good when it's like, you know how it's been a trend in fashion right now. It's like techno.
Do you think we will be visited by aliens? Or no, I'm just kidding. I don't know why. Since when? Since when have you cared about aliens?
I love it.
I know.
Who's the most problematic star you've interviewed? Besides Christy, of course.
I'm very problematic. Right. Yeah. I don't apologize for it.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I would say more so when I was at my 9-to-5 job. So like, for example, when I was at Famous Birthdays, I wasn't even always the one. I was like lower on the totem pole, so I wasn't even always the ones interviewing a bunch of people. But I was there in the room, or I was the email coordinator. But we always noticed that, like, I don't know, I don't want to say names, but like certain YouTubers, oddly, it was always the ones who were like not as successful, like almost like they were unsure
Mid-level.
of their standing.
Yes.
Maybe they were famous and then it was kind of fading.
Yeah.
They were the ones who were very like mean to the parking attendant, like came with a huge entourage that was rude. Like they were always the ones that I think were afraid of their status. Whereas, for example, one time Mark Cuban came in and he was like early. He showed up alone he got out of the back of an Uber Prius, went around the room. There wasn't that many employees in the office that day. He met everyone. He asked what they did, if they liked it. Wow. And he was probably losing $1,000 a minute, but he was just present. He was happy to be there. And I feel like sometimes people that are very successful for a long time, it's because they're nice and they're good to work with.
Oh gosh, ain't it true?
Okay,
Ain't
so
it
let me
true?
ask you this. We are renowned as sort of not the phoenix from the ashes, but I think it's like,
oh no.
we generally are making content because we really just like each other. We want to have fun. And like, that's the whole premise of this podcast.
Yeah.
So can you give us a prediction, please, about, you know, what you see for, you know, a brand like this?
Yeah. No, I love it. I mean, I've obviously the Vulnerable podcast as well. I've watched and stuff. And I always love a mixing
Tell
of
us the truth.
I always love a mixing of like traditional and new media. Well, I wanted to before I get into that, I wanted to ask, how did the podcast even come about? Because I just
Vulnerable.
Really. So you interviewed her and then you guys.
She went on the cooking show I had on YouTube a long time ago.
Okay.
It was like 2020, and we had her come, and we really hadn't seen each other since we were kids, and it was just this instant vibe. And I think my husband, who's my co-producer and everything, and he was just like, "You guys have something together that you don't realize, but I can see a mile away." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." She doesn't want to hang out with me again. I'm just like, you know.
And I don't. It's awful. No, it's so funny. It's like this. I don't know. Do you have anybody that you follow? Like, I grew up watching her. We were always had parallel lives. I've said this before. But it's like that thing where you see them from afar and you're almost in competition, but you're like, do I not like her? Or am I jealous of her career? Or actually, if we become friends, are we really going to? I mean, there are so many women. No, right? Though, like, think about the women, everybody you see on Instagram, and it's like, oh, we know that person. It's like too close for comfort, but they're afar, and you know, it's just this weird thing of like, you like them, but the industry makes you think you don't like each other and that you shouldn't be friends and that you'll be in competition or whatever. So we were kind of always liking each other from afar, but never.
That's interesting. We were naturally repelled from each other.
I think so.
Like,
I think so, unfortunately. And
no, that's cool.
Nobody helped us with that. You know what I'm saying? No one made that better.
Well, if anything,
for us.
people just got excited about keeping us apart.
Yeah.
Like, I think people, just like always, people love to split women
I'm so glad
up.
you're interviewing us today, Coco.
Thank you.
See, I'm so curious about people. I was like, I wanted to know.
So basically, we were told that we have a thing together, and it was pretty objectively like, and then I think we felt it, and now we feel it more. And every time we see each other, I think it's like, oh, this is what people were talking about, or like, and then we're feeling it out, and I think we're growing it so that it feels more structured.
Yeah, but it wasn't anything genius or, you know, it's just we wanted to do a podcast. But
I also wanted to do something fun because Vulnerable is very serious.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like starting to get super depressed when I would come home from it.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is really hard to like unpack. You know.
So anyway, more about us. Like, what's your prediction about us?
Yeah.
And then I want to talk about Holly Madison.
I know, right? And now you're like sitting on a red lip couch.
I know,
having
right?
fun.
Like, how serious is this?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think in general, podcasting and just long form like content is going to fill a void. There's going to be podcasts like this that like people are naturally drawn to, especially with people who are in like the traditional space like you guys are and actors, because they're not going to be able to see actors or people that kind of specialize in what you guys do. So podcasting, I think, is like audiences are just going to have this itch for long media. And I always say, I've been thinking that, and I mean, I blew up on TikTok. It's my bread and butter. I think we're seeing what I call short form fatigue. Like, I think people don't want to watch short videos anymore. Like, I think it takes more mental energy to scroll every 5 seconds. And
they call it doom scrolling.
Yes, you're processing a new face, a new caption, a new topic, a new dialect, a new person, a new like. But if you can I love just finding a good podcast and putting it on for like 30 minutes, an hour.
What are you listening
to? What I'm listening to right now, I was just listening to a bunch of Holly Madison interviews, preparing for my interview with
You prepare for your interviews? Oh my God.
Holly, though, I watched that one.
I interviewed Holly on Vulnerable.
I don't mean to sound ignorant, but she was so intelligent. And of course, you know, you think,
She's
you
like
don't
an
think.
author.
Yeah.
Yes, but I mean.
I know. You really are a modern day like journalist when it comes to bridging understanding brand, predicting things, which is a huge market in and of itself, which is why I was like, who are your fans? Because every person at a certain age, like specifically Gen Zs, they all want to be content creators.
Yeah.
Like my little like 22-year-old nephew is like trying to do fitness content creation. And it's
But
like,
they all want to be seen. Isn't that really what it is?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
everyone
like,
wants to be seen and
everyone
heard
wants
is
attention.
what it is.
Yeah. Everyone wants to be famous now. It's crazy. You know,
Yeah.
it's like Leonardo DiCaprio, you don't know anything about him. What all you know is he smokes cigarettes and dates young girls.
Yeah.
We don't know a single thing what
Yeah.
he watches. He'll never do an interview. He's so untouchable.